Scoring rubrics. Scoring rubrics is employed for a judgment of a quality, used to assess a broad range of subjects and activities. It focuses on stated objectives and the educational standards. As active participants, students are aware of the standards. The assessment is transparent and fair. There are two types of scoring rubric: holistic and analytic. Holistic rubrics is a single grading scale. All criteria considered in the evaluation is included together. Rater assigns a single score. It doesn't provide as granular, targeted feedback on student performance. And analytic rubrics is a multi-component grading scale. Describes each evaluation criteria separately. Raters assign a score for each component, along with an overall score. It provides also more granular targeted feedback and more time consuming to create. Analytic rubrics work best at articulating performance levels with each criteria. And here are the advantages and disadvantages. The advantage is analytic rubrics provide useful feedback that are targeted to each student's strengths and weaknesses. Criterion can be weighted in order to demonstrate importance of each dimension, and it assess specific dimensions separately. The disadvantage is more time-consuming than holistic. Could affect consistency among raters unless criterion is clearly defined. Why use rubrics? For teachers, prompt a criterion referenced assessment. Provide students with detailed and timely feedback. Encourage critical thinking. Facilitate communication with others involved in scoring. Help to refine teaching skills and learning activities. And for students, it clarifies the teacher's expectations of student performance. Provide informative descriptions of expected performance and help to monitor and critique own work. When to use rubrics on performance-based tasks, extended response items. Standard response items have traditionally been called essay questions. An extended response item is an open-ended question that begins with some type of prompt. Projects. A project is defined as a sequence of tasks that must be completed to attain a certain outcome. Presentations. Presentation is defined as the act of formally giving something to someone or of formally demonstrating or showing something. Portfolios. A portfolio is a flat case used for carrying loose sheets of paper or a combination of investments or samples of completed works. The purpose of scoring rubrics. Rubrics are simply a scoring tool that lists criteria for projects, assignments, or other pieces of work. Rubrics list what needs to be included in order to receive a certain score or grade. It allows the student to evaluate his/her own work before submitting. Instructors can justify their grades based on the rubric. Rubrics also provide students with valuable information about the degree of which a specific learning outcome has been achieved. They provide students with concrete feedback that displays areas of strengths and areas in need of improvement. Students can use this feedback as a tool to further develop their abilities, and rubrics can enhance student learning by having consistency in the way teachers score individually assignments, as well as keeping consistency between the ways different teachers scores the same assignment. And rubrics can also improve student learning by allowing students to peer assess and self-assess assignments. And it shows how use scoring rubrics in task performance and how it is judged or scored. And an analytic rubric is one that explicitly breaks down an assignment into its constitutive skills and provides students with guidelines for what each performance level looks like for each skill. As you can see, an analytic rubric provides students with much clearer definition of the evaluation criteria. For example, analytic rubrics used to evaluate student essay writing often include the following dimensions: development of ideas, organization, language use, vocabulary, grammar, spelling, and mechanics. Analytic and holistic rubrics. These are the two types of rubrics. First, analytic rubric. Each criterion are evaluated simultaneously. An analytic rubric is a good for formative assessment. It is also adaptable to summative assessment because if you need an overall score for grading, you can combine the scores. And second, holistic rubric. Scoring is faster than with analytic rubric. It is good for summative assessment because it consists of a single scale with all criteria to be included in the evaluation being considered together. For example, clarify, organization, and mechanics. With the holistic rubric, the rater assigns a single score, usually on a 1 to 4 or 1 to 6 point scale. It is based on overall judgment of the student's work. Reasons of rubrics. A rubric is a coherent set of criteria for students' work that includes descriptions of levels of performance quality on the criteria. The main purpose of rubrics is to assess performance made evident in processes and products. It can be served as a scoring guide that seeks to evaluate a student's performance in many different tasks based on a full range of criteria rather than a single numerical score. The objectives test can be scored by simply counting the correct answers, but The essay test, students' products, and students' performances cannot be scored. Products and performances can be scored really, reliably only with use of scoring rubrics. An analytic rubric resembles a grid with the criteria for a student product listed in the leftmost column, and with levels of performance listed across the top row, often of using numbers and or descriptive tags. The cells within the center of the rubric may be left blank or may contain descriptions of what the specified criteria look like for each level of performance. When scoring with an analytic rubric, each of the criteria is scored individually. And the purpose of assessment, they are great tool to evaluate teamwork and individual contribution to group tasks, because rubrics facilitate peer review by setting evaluation standards. Have students use the rubric to provide peer assessment on various drafts. Students can use them for self-assessment to improve personal performance and learning. How rubrics use informative assessment? Rubrics are criteria that cover the essence of a performance that is judged with them. Rubrics help define expected performance, standards of quality, levels of accomplishment. They are also helpful in diagnostic assessment and providing feedback to students. And in summative assessment, a rubric is the most often used for the summative assessment, but it is also a formative assessment tool. In-depth comments about the levels the learner has achieved, provide feedback about what the learner needs. This is the example for creative writing. This area here, the image, characteristics, voice, story, are the criteria or the concepts. And this is how we're going to judge or to score. Excellent 4, 3 good, 2 fair, 1 poor. If his or her image is maximum use of significant details, you could score 4. And several use of significant details, it can be good. Minimal use of significant details, fair. And poor for no use of significant details, as well as in the characterization, voice, and the story. This is the example of how to use analytic rubric in creative writing contest. And it is, when using scoring rubrics, is very important because it is very useful in making grades. Every day in your class it is used in written or in oral performance. Rubrics are important because they clarify for students the qualities their works should have. For this reason, rubrics help teachers teach. They help coordinate instruction and assessment, and they help students learn. Rubrics also provide students with valuable information about the degree of which a specific learning outcome has been achieved. They provide students with concrete feedback that displays areas of strength and areas in need of improvement. Students can use this feedback as a tool to further develop their abilities. Having a clear rubric lets students in on the decision-making process. Students better understand the criteria of each assignment, so they can begin to look at their assignment with the critical eye of a teacher, allowing them to understand their past mistakes and fix their current ones. It also demystifies grades and helps students see that the whole object of schoolwork is attainment and refinement. Refinement of problem solving. Refinement of problem solving and life skills. And also help teachers authentically monitor a student learning process and develop and also revise lesson plan. I attach here an video tutorial on how to create an analytic rubrics.
This is the analytical rubric. It is a rubric that scores on individual traits. So you can see here that I have my descriptors off to the side, but now for each descriptor, there are several levels of how the student is doing, from best performance to worst. Now, whether it's left to right or right to left doesn't really matter. That's not the point. But with this is that you have traits and then you have descriptions of competence to incompetence for achievement on that particular trait. So let's take a look at an example. So here is an analytical rubric that is filled out, and so the student is being graded on 3 different traits here: idea, explanation, coherency, and grammar. And to get excellence, this is what they have to do with their ability to explain ideas. For coherency, this is what they have to do, etc. And for grammar, etc. And so you can see here, as we go from left to right, the scores go down. They go from excellent to needs improvement. And inside each box, the student gets an idea of how well they were doing. So as you can see here, the analytical rubric allows for better feedback. The student gets a greater sense of how they're doing, not just in general, but on specific traits. But also the downside is that analytical rubrics are often much slower to complete for the teacher. You can imagine having 30 essays and having to fill out, 3 different levels on each rubric. That's 90 times that you have to fill something out, in addition to the time you have to spend reading, etc. So generally, analytical rubrics take much more time, but for the average teacher, they're also much more common and much more popular than the holistic rubric. So which one you use depends. Again, I recommend holistic rubrics for summative, end of semester type assessments when you don't really need to provide feedback. You just want to get it done so you can submit grades. Analytical rubrics, on the other hand, are great to be used throughout the semester to help the student to get an idea of how they can improve and what they need to do. The last one, and this is not as commonly used, is called a primary trait.